Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerate it. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. And anomalous, really anomalous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, DYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. It's Monday, start of a brand new week full of course, Supreme Court rulings. We had one today, and it's interesting. We wanted to talk about that. We also have a lot of other news to talk about. We've got Karens going wild in the worst way possible, of course. We have Donald Trump on stupid people. Oh, this is fun. We got the Confederate flag in Mississippi's flag. So that's interesting. That's a very good story, actually. It's one of the rare feel-good stories that we have. And then we're going to talk about how Gilead, is it Gilead or Gilead? I'd say Gilead. They are not only the fictional country in, the Handmaid's Tale, but also they're living up to that terrible name by being a company that's ripping people off. And so we have their newest ripoff, a coronavirus treatment. So we've got the price on that. So we're going to talk about that. I know it's a weird kind of end run around to try to get to that point, but that's what I do. Oops. All right. Anyway, so those are some of the stories we're going to talk about today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. Helps us out as usual. Man, can we believe that we're already at the end of June? I wonder what July's disaster will be. And whatever happened to the murder hornets? It feels like we're missing some things here. Pandemic, Donald Trump, wildfires. That's all stuff that's happened this year. Murder hornets. What's up for July? No idea. Kind of afraid to find out. But anyway, we'll deal with that disaster when it happens. All right, potential disaster. I don't know what's gonna happen. All right. Anyway, let's move forward. Let's kind of dive right into the stories, and we'll start out with Donald Trump hate tweeting. This is always fun. So what do you do when you find out that people in your own party don't support you? Do you listen to their concerns? Do you empathize with them? Or do you just flat out ignore them and embrace the majority of the people that happen to be on your side? Well, if you're Donald Trump, you're going to do kind of none of those things. And instead, you're going to lash out at those very few people in your own party that don't like you and call them stupid. Because, fun. So, as usual, taking to social media, our very grown-up, adult, stable genius president first talked about his approval ratings because, of course, right? He says 95% approval rating of President Trump and the Republican Party. I would imagine the 5% are rhinos, with an apostrophe, and stupid people who don't want to see great judges and Supreme Court justices, a new and powerful military, choice for vets, 2A protection, big regulation cuts, life, and much more. Right. It is funny that he mentions the judges, right? Some of the judges, I mean, yes, some of the decisions coming from the court are generally like party line, with John Roberts crossing over to actually join the liberals. In fact, we just had an abortion ruling where John Roberts did exactly that as Chief Justice. And so, but, a couple of the decisions, at least one of the justices, Neil Gorsuch, basically, has also crossed over to the side of the liberals. And so, what happened with those great Supreme Court picks? Not to say, of course, that Neil Gorsuch is on our side at all, but he's just mainly corporatist. Nonetheless, right? The 5%. It's going to go up to the 5% because 95% is not enough. Understand, it's not enough for somebody like Donald Trump. He's got to have 100% or he's very, very unhappy. He's very, very sad, very, very unhappy. The stupid people, the rhinos. How dare the rhinos come after me? So, who are they, right? Well, these are the Republicans that realize that you cannot go around dog whistling and appealing to the most racist people openly and expect to win an election. I mean, they're the ones that, yes, they actually do want most of the policies that President Trump puts up, but what they don't like is the open racism and misogyny. Why? It's because it hurts them electorally, right? I mean, it's pretty simple, right? Remember the Bill Kristols and the Rick Wilsons and George Conways and Steve Schmitz, they are still overall terrible people. Look, as much as I enjoyed seeing the ads from the Lincoln Project, which is a big Republican group that has been, that is George Conway's, of course, Bill Kristols, and Rick Wilson's group, they've been making some devastating ads against Donald Trump, and I do enjoy them. Why? Because I love seeing Republican on Republican crime. And Republicans seem to be the only ones that have the balls to be vicious to other people. In this case, Republicans versus Republicans or Republicans versus Donald Trump, who really has no ideology other than help Donald Trump. So that's what that is. So now, remember, the key to the Republican grift, right? Because again, Bill Kristol and those guys, what they want is more wars and they want more tax cuts for the rich. But the key to the grift, right, is you got to kind of mislead, or very much so mislead and confuse voters into supporting policy that only helps rich. Remember, right, this is what Frank Luntz, that's what his job was originally. I mean, yes, he's a pollster, right? But one of his other jobs for the Republican Party was to come up with ways to basically disguise Republican bad policy, right? Which mainly, again, helps rich and corporations to disguise that bad policy with good sounding names, like the Freedom and America Act, which has nothing to do with freedom or America, which would like shift. This is just an example, right? And it's not real legislation that I know of, right? Like the Freedom, America, and Apple Pie Act. And it like literally probably allows like pesticides or some horrible stuff to be sprayed on apples, and then gives like the Apple corporations a giant tax cut. I mean, something stupid like that. That's kind of along the lines that these Republicans operate when they craft policy. And so they don't want you to know that their policy is terrible, so they come up with like names for it. That's supposed to appeal to, the jingoism and all that stuff. And, oh, look at that, American exceptionalism. It's the Exceptional America Act, which like allows corporations to, go and outsource most of their jobs overseas and give them giant tax cuts, stuff like that, right? Anything that helps the wealthy, anything that helps corporations, they're all about, right? So understand in that regard, you're not really different than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is also pretends to be rich, right? So he saves money with tax cuts, and then also runs a company. And so those tax cuts help him. That deregulation helps him, and so anything that helps Donald Trump, he's in favor of. And so that said, there are some differences, right? And so before I get to that, again, this grift relies on being subtle, right? In this case, being subtle about racism and basically trying to pit the classes and the races against each other so they can't, see that the Republicans are the ones picking their pockets. And so Trump's not savvy enough. Trump's not smart enough to code his language in that way. No, the guy just blurts it right out. I mean, over the weekend, he retweeted a video where a guy was like, white power. What? I mean, again, he's not even hiding it. And so every Republican that's a rhino that wants to actually win and continue the grift, they're like, what are you doing, you moron? Stop tweeting. Stop doing it. Remember, that's the biggest complaint the Republicans have is Donald Trump really needs to stop tweeting. Why? It's because he's too honest, because he's not smart enough to hide his racism, bigotry, and xenophobia and misogyny. He's just not smart enough. Now, the issue, of course, there's another issue. As I said, it's policy, right? Some of the policies, they do differ on. Donald Trump, for example, wants, not just Donald Trump, but Republicans in general tend to want more military spending, right? More Pentagon spending. And of course, the Democrats also tend to do more military spending, right? Because everybody loves the industrial complex, the military industrial complex in Congress, right? Thing is about Donald Trump, he wants more military spending, but less war. Not getting into, more Middle Eastern wars. I'm sure he'll, try to, now that Iran has issued, basically, they want to arrest Donald Trump. Okay, Iran. I get it, right? For the death of Soleimani. At the same time, like, you're going to provoke this moron of morons into a war, which is going to be absolutely disastrous. Like, not a good idea, because you never know with Donald Trump, but generally he has been against these wars, even though he's been in favor of military spending, right? The people like John Bolton and Bill Kristol, they're the architects of the Iraq War, right? So they want more war in the Middle East, and they welcome a conflict with Iran. And also welcome a conflict with North Korea as well. They salivate over it, while Donald Trump's like, I want Kim Jong-un. He wants to be my friend. I want to be Kim Jong-un's friends. We sent each other love letters, right? And Trump hates Iran only because I think Obama made a deal with them once, and anything Obama did was ultimately 100% bad, right? But there's also the issue of free trade, right? The GOP establishment loves free trade. They love the outsourcing to other countries where they can make an extra buck and exploit people with no labor laws or little labor laws, and of course pay them less. And then they want to use that outsourcing argument, to say that, hey, if we want to bring jobs back, we're going to have to deregulate. We're going to have to cut regulations. We're going to have to cut the minimum wage, pay people less, destroy unions, all that stuff. So Trump's slightly more populist position on free trade undermines the Republican grift. So that said, right, I think at this point we've established that a decent chunk of the Republican base are just terrible people, generally, right? They keep pushing for a more openly racist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic conspiracy theorist to be in office. And I'm not just saying the presidency, I'm saying all over the country. We're seeing a crop of Republican politicians get worse and worse and worse, especially as the more establishment GOP politicians are retiring over Donald Trump. And so you're seeing that, right? And you're seeing a rise, of course, in these people that want to vote more of these Trump-like people into office. But as that, little base pushes for more of those people, they turn off the less extreme members. and of course turn off most of the rest of the country. And so that's why they're going to lose in the long run. As long as more people vote, as long as we don't have, of course, massive voter suppression, or we can push past that voter suppression. And there's the other thing, right? So now the business wing of the Republican Party, right? The establishment, they're very, very concerned about all this, right? About all these very loud, racist Republicans. And they're concerned with the fact that these Republicans have woken up the rest of the electorate and, and really showed them how bad they really are, right? The rest of the country rejects all this stuff. These are the people that normally don't pay attention to politics. They're the ones that would believe that, oh no, why would you fire somebody for being gay? That doesn't make any sense. I thought we had protections over that. Turns out we actually don't have any protections from that. And then these are also the people that were like, wait, I didn't realize police were that awful to black people. And it turns out maybe we should do something about that, right? Those people, again, they're not exactly low information. They just don't have time to consume news like we do, right? So they don't have time to consume news. They're busy living their lives, and they're working, and they're, sometimes doing the two jobs, or just trying to stay away from politics as much as they can. But at this point, it's become unavoidable. Like, because Donald Trump doesn't shut his mouth. And so now it's very, very obvious who this guy is. And so now you have these establishment Republicans that are saying, no, wait, that's not what the Republican Party is all about. In reality, of course, they are very low key about many of those same things, the racism, misogyny. Going back to Reagan with the welfare queens. They've always been about this, but it's always been hidden. It's always been more subtle. And so they don't like the fact that it's now out in the open. But here's the thing. You can't shove this thing back in the bottle. These Republicans are hoping that you will. But that base, the ones that are with Donald Trump, they show you exactly who they are. And when somebody shows you who they are, well, you should believe it. You should believe them. That said, even Trump is starting to lose some of that support. Not again the massive racists and misogynists and xenophobes. Not losing those people, but losing key constituencies, right? Independents and even senior voters. I guess it turns out that whole "let's sacrifice you from Wall Street" thing, that the White House had been pushing, not exactly popular with that demographic. Who would have thought, right? And those who paid attention, those seniors, might have noticed that throughout his entire administration, throughout his entire term, every budget that has been put forward, and of course those budgets are blueprints about their policy priorities, right? Every one of those had Social Security cuts in it. They want to cut Social Security. And so, yeah, that pisses off senior voters. And so now he's losing that constituency. Now he's losing the independents because of all this stuff, because especially the COVID-19 response. It has been terrible. It has been an absolute disaster. And so now, because of that, Trump's overall approval numbers with Americans are in the low 40s, whereas disapproval ratings are a staggering 56%. It's a disaster. He's in serious trouble, right? And so instead of trying to do something about it, instead of actually trying to, do a better job so that he can get reelected, well, he's going to do the lazy thing because that's who he is. He's lazy. He's going to say those rhinos are stupid. Anybody who, is against me in the Republican Party is stupid. Oh, well, that's going to bring you more voters, especially Republican voters who might be on the fence. Look, again, I couldn't imagine anybody who's on the fence other than somebody who hasn't been paying attention. But the whole point is you're going to turn people off. And I don't know why I'm trying to give advice here because I want Donald Trump to lose, and I want him to lose very, very badly. But if he keeps going in this direction, well, that's exactly what's going to happen. Again, I know some of you might be like, no. Joe Biden's got a million problems. Yup. even so, with all the problems that he has, and I think in a lot of cases he's got more baggage than Hillary Clinton, but he doesn't have the negative connotations associated with him that Hillary Clinton has. He's got the positive association to Barack Obama because he was Veep for 8 years. And so he's got that going for him. He's got higher positives than Hillary Clinton. And so in this case, it's Donald Trump's election to lose, not Joe Biden's to win. And so I think what we're going to see at the end of the day is if the situation continues to be like this and people continue to reject Donald Trump in droves, and I don't see it changing, Biden's going to walk right into it. And he's going to defeat Donald Trump. And so, again, that's just what I'm saying. That's just what I think. He is in serious trouble, though. And again, instead of trying to fix it, Donald Trump is just going to scream and rant all the way until the election, all the way until November, until he gets ousted. All right. Yeah, at this point, people will vote for a ham sandwich over Donald Trump. And no one's more of a crusty old ham sandwich that's been out in the sun than Joe Biden. But compared to a turd sandwich, yeah. That's the situation that we're in. All right. Progressives can't take over the party because I'm sorry, just reading some comments here. Because every media besides independent media is propaganda and lies telling people the Dems like Pelosi are fighting Trump. No, that's a great comment, Mary Smith. I agree with that. Look, Pelosi and the Democratic Party, and I don't want to get too long into this, but I do just want to say, like, they're so good at performative wokeness. That's what Nancy Pelosi does. It's all performative wokeness. You know, I will put on a kente cloth, right? I will rip up a paper and I will clap sarcastically like a seal. You know, but all of this stuff that's just all like no substance whatsoever. All just nothing. There's just nothing there. It's like a cloud. Poof, gone. There's really nothing there, right? That's Nancy Pelosi. She has been more of the assistants to Donald Trump. Democrats have been more the assistants to Donald Trump than I think some Republicans, right? Because what you've had is you know, establishment Democrats voting for Donald Trump's war budget over and over and over and over again, right? Doing that, confirming Trump judges. Conservatives have completely remade the judiciary for a generation. And they could only do that with the help of the Democrats. And so, yeah, they're feckless. Exactly, Renee. Exactly feckless. And so that's the problem that we have with the Democrats. And I tell you, it's just, I mean, you're absolutely right about that. And of course, corporate media is a big part of that. They get, and the reason they're on, you know, the side of the establishment is because they make money off the establishment through television ads. And that's what that is. And so, yeah, independent media, we don't get TV ads, right? The advertising doesn't work the same way as it does here. And so we have, we have a vested interest in telling the truth because that's what our audience demands of us. And that's what we set out here to do on these shows, is to make sure that we tell the truth and that you guys are basically supporting us to be able to do that and to actually change the system. And that's what we're doing. All right. Anyway, let's move forward here. Wow. All right. So that was the scene during a St. Louis protest in a gated community against the mayor. So now, this is let me give you some context, right? So the mayor's Lita Cruzen, right? And so during a regularly scheduled coronavirus press briefing, right, she was asked about the protests, right, that had been happening all over, not only the city but also the country. And she said, "Well, it's not really a two-way conversation because the protesters are very loud. We're getting a very loud response from the demonstrators." Okay, and you're an elected official. You're supposed to listen to the community, right? So the community, by the way, is like, look, we got ideas on how you can help with policing, how we can change things, and so they sent out ideas in writing, to which, of course, Mayor Cruzen decided to publicly dox them. Yeah, basically to say their ideas, their names, and addresses out loud during a Facebook live stream. So that obviously made a lot of people mad, and she later on pulled that video and apologized for it. Right now, what does any of this have to do with Karen and Clyde over here? Right? We'll get to that. So now that led to more protests. Right? So she doxed them. The protesters and demonstrators demanded that she resign after that. And they took their demonstration into a very ritzy part of the city, central west end of Lake Avenue. So that's where this happened, right? This is a gated community, which is filled with very affluent white people. And as these Black Lives Matter protesters came through, they began to shit their pants, basically, in fear of all these black people on the street. Oh my God, there's black people outside, and they're marching. It's the black people. It's the Black Lives Matter. It's the Antifas. They're after us. Oh my God! And so here, this couple comes out with their literally armed, right? And here's more of that video. Okay, then. Insanity. Imagine being so scared of black people demonstrating, right, in your neighborhood that you decide that you need to feel, or you need to point guns at them, right? Oh my God, there's so much of a danger. Those unarmed people with drums. I mean, come on, man. Really? Kind of ironically proves the point of protests, right? Because you've got these white, affluent, right-wing Americans that are taught to see these people as dangerous thugs, even though, again, they're unarmed, they're peaceful demonstrators, and they're not doing anything other than, of course, saying like, hey, we would like some justice. We got doxxed, right? And so we would like you to step down from your position. It's literally what they're doing. And I know the right wing's like, oh, these guys they're out here, they're being patriots and Second Amendment, defending their property. Again, they weren't even on their property. But at the same time, you also have the First Amendment, protests, literally protected by the First Amendment. The first comes before the second, just saying that. So, I mean, come on. Now, another thing that the right-wingers are saying, of course, is like, oh, it's a gated community. I can't believe they would go to a private gated community and invade it with their blackness, essentially, right? So, look, I think sidewalks should be public property, period, right? I hate the idea of gated communities. I think we should abolish them. I think we should get rid of gated communities. I'm done with it. You know why? Because the whole point of a gated community is to keep poor people and minorities out. So these rich assholes get to live in nice, private secludedness, right? And don't have to see the reality of how everyone else lives. They're literally walling themselves off because they are so scared of average people. They can't deal with it. And of course, these are the same people that watch Fox News all day, right? And so Fox News has been going on and on and on and on and on about the protesters. Oh my God, they're so violent. The demonstrators are violent. They're all rioters. They're all terrible. That's simply not true. But they believe it. They believe this stuff. And so that's why they were out there literally pointing weapons at these demonstrators. I mean, look, I was trained on how to properly use and store a firearm. Okay. I used to work at a shooting club when I was younger. And so the number one rule is that you don't point your weapon at something unless you intend to use it. She was out there cavalierly pointing that weapon at people. She could have accidentally had an accidental discharge, right? Not to say like she's going to shoot somebody on purpose. No, but accidents happen. Some of those weapons have hair triggers. I don't know if they had anything like that in the pistol or that AR-15, but we don't know. Might as well assume the worst at this point. Luckily, it didn't go off. Luckily, there wasn't an accidental discharge. And luckily, nobody got hurt or killed. But at the same time, what are you doing? No, you got to keep your weapon pointed at the ground and keep your finger away from the trigger. If you're going to be armed at all, which you shouldn't even have to be, right? And that's the other problem with this. Who's really the armed thugs here? Again, they talk about how dangerous these black demonstrators are, the supposed Antifas, right? And the Black Lives Matter protesters. And when in reality, the dangerous people, I see those two people, and I think there's the danger. That's the real community. People like that. And we're really afraid, right? We were fearing for our lives. Why? Because some black people invaded their precious gated community, had the gall to to march by their yard. Ridiculous. These people are ridiculous. No. Look, these people really are the face of the frightened white elite in this country. And I hope people continue to see them for what they are. A result of ignorance, fear, and hate. That's what these people are. All right. We're not done with crazy Karens. Moving on. A white woman was caught having a complete meltdown on camera over wearing a mask, as usual. So now this happened in the Fiesta Market in Texas, and a manager simply asked this woman very politely to put on a mask because we are, of course, in the middle of a pandemic. And as you're going to see, her response was, well, shocking.
Call the police.
Yeah. All right, then. So now, look, it's amazing how adults are acting worse than children, right? Because actually, children generally don't tend to act like that. No, we get the worst behavior from adults, people who actually should know better, Whereas children, of course, yeah, some of that could be excuses like, hey, they're just kids. They haven't exactly grown up yet. They don't necessarily know better. But in this case, Karen knows better. She's not a kid. She's not a child. She's an adult. She's a grown-ass woman. What are you doing throwing groceries around? And the most astonishing fact about this is that this woman was, during her shopping trip, adhering to the mask, request, right? So she was wearing a mask all the way up till the fact that she, gets to the, checkout lane. And then when somebody's like, hey, because she took her mask down, they took it off, they're like, hey, put your mask back on until we're done, please. That's when she flipped out. Apparently, she could not handle 5 more minutes of a mask. I mean, it's not as if the checkout is a virus-free zone. No, it can still spread there. It's not like the virus particles, the coronavirus, like, oh, no, wait, no. Karen made it to the register. We should leave her alone now. We'll go after someone else. No, that's not how that works. Okay? And so look, just wear your mask. It's not really that hard. It's super, super easy. So look, now, again, I mentioned this happened in Texas, right? Texas is experiencing a massive spike in coronavirus cases. Why? It's because people like that. Okay? And look, young people are primarily the drivers of all of the new cases. People that are not wearing masks, they're not doing physical distancing, and they're going out and they're partying, and they're they're having all sorts of fun, right? As if like they just got bored of the pandemic. It's over. I'm tired of it. Let's go out and party anyway. Who cares? Jeez, it's not like that's not the reality. Like we all have to buckle down, and it sucks. I know. I want to go out. I want to have fun. I want to do all this stuff. Well, it turns out we can't because there's a global freaking pandemic. And no matter how much you want to throw a fit, Karen, it's not going to change the situation. And the sooner we all adhere to the guidelines, the sooner this is going to be over, right? And because, look, I know the only way that it's really going to be over is if we have a vaccine. But at least what we can do is make it so that we don't overload our healthcare system with coronavirus patients. And unfortunately, that is happening in Texas. Look, Greg Abbott is shutting down bars, right? Some bars. And then Houston announced that they're running out of beds in the ICU. Florida, same thing. They had nearly 9,000 cases last week in one day on Friday. The whole state of Texas has also experienced a record number of hospitalizations for 16 days in a row. Wear the mask. Just wear the mask. It's not hard, right? Yeah, I know. It's super, it's inconvenient. It's hot. You know what? This weekend I went to a birthday party, right? For one of my nephews. And it was hot outside because the whole thing was outside. Very small groups of people, maximum like 5 people. And everybody was wearing a mask. Everybody was 6 feet apart. Hotter than hell outside. We still did it. We did it. I was there for like 6 hours, okay? Because I helped take everything back down and made sure to visit with the different families that were coming in. And so, look, I did it. Why can't you? Why can't people be slightly inconvenienced for America? Why is it that, or for health reasons? Why can't we do that for everyone else? I mean, look, apparently being slightly inconvenienced in this country is grounds for throwing massive fits like what this lady did. There's no excuse, man. Like, what are you doing throwing food because somebody nicely asked you to wear a mask? Grow up. Grow up. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you know what's funny? And it's not actually funny, but the rest of the world is already avoiding America like a plague. And I hope you realize the irony in that statement. Because what Florida has become to the rest of the country, we have become to the rest of the world. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of our country being behind in education. I'm tired of our country being behind in science and believing in science or, healthcare or climate change or trust in the government, all that stuff. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this self-entitled word number one, rugged individualism, America. I'm tired of it because it's killing people. It's killing us. Okay? And so cut it out. Cut it out. Be a goddamn adult. Wear your mask and maybe act like you give a shit to other people or about other people. It's so simple. Just do it. All right. I'm going to take a break. A little frustrated, a little flustered. We'll come back. We got more stories here, including the coronavirus treatment or a treatment for coronavirus. They're screwing us over again. They're doing it again. I'll explain how. Stay right here. Right after this break, we'll be right back. Around the Nation.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Mike Pounds.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, 218 Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so that was a fun little break. All right, so first I'm going to thank some patrons, patreon.com/218 Nation. There's like a sales tax announcement, by the way. Patrons, some patrons are going to be charged a sales tax. So I'm going to look into that. And so those of you who it affects, I will make a post on Patreon very soon about that. But that's about to take place on July 1st. So nonetheless, right. So let's go to some patrons here. Again, these are people who support the show through patreon.com/218 Nation. And I can't appreciate them even more than I already do because you guys are awesome and you help the show. All right, so let's go here to some of the newest patrons that we have. Hold. Okay. Anala Kapoor and Sora Caetano are the new patrons of the day. I'm notorious for murdering names. So if you want to have your name slaughtered on air, sign up to be a patron. Patreon.com/218 Nation. But thank you anyway. You guys are amazing. Okay. Channel memberships, same thing. But these are some easier names here. I want to thank Gregory Owens and Inighost. So for being a channel member, you can be a channel member by hitting the join button below and all that wonderful stuff. So thank you for that. Trevor Watson, also thank you for signing up to becoming to become a member. That's awesome. All right. That said, Oh, and I forgot to pin my merchandise. So they do sell shirts and stuff. All right. Oh, hold on. So Mr. Elder here says, I don't like wearing a damn mask. It gets hot and fogs my glasses up, but I wear one anyway because I care about other people. Yeah, man, like I hate it when it fogs up my glasses. So I had the same issue. It does get hot. It does fog my glasses. I still do it anyway. And so, yeah, man, because we're adults and we do care about other people and we're not sociopaths. So thank you, Mr. Elder, for doing that, for joining me in wearing the mask. All right. Now let's move on. Major drug maker has now basically announced the price of their course of treatment for the coronavirus. And it turns out that it's not cheap. According to the Associated Press, Gilead Sciences on Monday announced the price for the drug remdesivir. And as I mentioned before, it's pretty expensive. Now, this drug has actually been shown to shorten recovery time for seriously ill COVID-19 patients. And so it doesn't really help the death, reduce the death toll of the virus, but it does help people recover a little bit faster. So now the price for this drug, if you have insurance, is $3,120 or $250 a dose. Wow. So now, of course, they mentioned that, well, I mean, the amount that patients will pay out of pocket, well, it depends on your insurance, depends on your income and other factors. I think some of those other factors, of course, include how they should get away with highway robbery amid a pandemic that's killed 500,000 people globally. But that's just me. And they might want to think about that for a bit. I'm just saying, right? So now Dan O'Day, who is Gilead's chief executive, he said this, quote, we're in uncharted territory with pricing a new medicine, a novel medicine, in a pandemic. We believe that we really had to deviate from the normal circumstances and price the drug to ensure wide access rather than based solely on value to patients. Wide access, guys. Wide access. You know what? Access is the all lives matter of healthcare. That's what that is. Oh, we're going to ensure access the same way that all lives matter. Whenever somebody talks about, hey, let's make medication free to people, we'll have the government pay for it through single payer, and allow the government to negotiate drug prices. They say, oh, no, we're just going to increase access. We're not going to do that radical stuff. That would actually make it affordable. No, we're just going to make it wider access. Oh, I'm sure that'll be a relief to have the access to this medication if you're one of the unlucky few who still has their insurance, or maybe the 40 million people currently out of work that have lost their employer-sponsored insurance. Well, they're screwed. They're screwed. Now, the treatment courses that the company has donated to the U.S., by the way, according to O'Day, and the other countries will run out in about a week. And then he says the prices will apply afterwards. So understand that they're like, we're just going to give the government a bunch of remdesivir and other countries. And then, as soon as it's shown to be somewhat effective, at least in reducing times that people, recovery times, then we're going to hike the price to $3,120 for a full course. Great. And they're doing that because they want to make a profit. And look, here's the thing. Okay. This medication was heavily subsidized by the American taxpayer. So we already paid for that drug. We invested $70 million into the development of this drug. $70 million. And yet this company is going to turn around and charge us again I mean, yes, they're going to charge the insurance companies that are going to pass down some of the price to us. Now, so some people, if they have good insurance, might pay a small copay, might not pay a copay at all. Who knows? It depends on your insurance. But at the same time, if you don't have insurance, well, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure they'll come out later and be like, oh, no, we got a program where you don't have to pay that much if you have no insurance. But somebody's going to pay because, of course, they're going to get their, pound of flesh, right? They're going to get their money. They're going to get their money, and they're going to be able to pay their executives with it because that's what they do. And so I think it's bullshit that they have can get away with charging people for this medication because, look, in America, I mean, it's really amazing. In this country, we have decided as a country that for some reason we cannot limit the profits of certain corporations like health insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies. I mean, even though the vast majority of the American people knows we're getting ripped off. They know we're getting ripped off, and they're like, hey, we should do something about this. And yet Congress, they don't do anything about this. They're like, oh, no, it's fine. Working as intended. We're not going to really do anything. I mean, even bills like that President Trump says he's in favor of that will limit price gouging, right, during a pandemic, still can't pass. And there's a reason for that. Of course, it's corporate lobbying. That's what that is. Corporate lobbying, corruption. It's the corruption. And so it's just, again, amazing, right, that they're allowing this to continue happening. And what sucks is that, again, you've got people who are risking their lives the most, right? You've got essential workers, grocery store cashiers, gas station attendants. Those are the ones that don't have good employer-sponsored insurance. They don't have any insurance, right? They're the ones that are most at risk, that are going to most need whatever drugs come out. And yes, I realize that this, isn't an effective treatment for coronavirus, but is, one of those things that shortens your recovery time. And so it does help. It has helpful properties, and certainly something that if you do have serious symptoms that you should be able to take and should be able to have. But think about anything else that they come up, any sort of really groundbreaking treatment for coronavirus. What are they going to do there? Are they going to be like, oh no, profit motives? Oh, we don't need that. We're just going to distribute it everyone to everyone for free because we care about protecting Americans, American citizens from this terrible virus. Is that going to happen? Very unlikely. Again, I know America, right? And so you're going to have people that don't have insurance, that don't have any sort of coverage, that are on the front lines, that are not going to be able to get this. And they're the ones who are going to die. And ironically, they're also going to continue this cycle of people getting sick from this virus. So you've got two viruses in this country, essentially, corporate greed and coronavirus. And one is feeding, actually, they're both feeding off each other. And it's disastrous. And so, you know what? Interesting fact here. Other countries, right? Gilead, right? In the article, they said, well, generic drug makers, Gilead has allowed them to supply 4 courses of treatment to 127 different countries, right? These are generic drug makers. You know how much they charge for that? For a whole course? $600. Are they allowing that in America? No, they're not allowing the generic here in America. And so American citizens, even with insurance, have to pay $3,000 for this, whereas other countries, $600 for a whole course. Why can't we do that here? Because we don't have a single payer system. In every other country where they're allowed to do this, they have a single payer system or some sort of universal healthcare system, right, that allows the government to negotiate drug prices with the drug manufacturers. We do not have that in the country, and that's why we're paying so much more, not just for this, but so much more for every medication. And by the way, the medications that are being gouged the most, I mean, you have insulin, for example, that's very, very cheap to make. This drug, you know how much it costs to make? $10. That's how much it it costs to manufacture this medication. No, it should all be free. It should all be free. It's amazing. So now there was obviously some outrage, right? Dr. Stephen Nissen of the Cleveland Clinic told the Associated Press in an email that, quote, "This is a high price for a drug that has not even been shown to reduce mortality. Given the serious nature of this pandemic, I would prefer the government take over production and distribution of the drug and distribute it for free. It was developed using significant taxpayer funding." You also have Peter May-Bardick, a lawyer at the consumer group Public Citizen, saying that this is an outrage. Quote, "This is a drug that received at least $70 million in public funding towards its development. Remdesivir should be in the public domain." And I agree 100%. I don't give a damn about profit margins. I don't care. It's a pandemic. This is about lives. And it's about time we stop putting profits over people and rein in the absolutely disgusting greed and extortion of these companies. There. Let's do one more story here real quick. We'll go to the Supreme Court. Today, the Supreme Court has struck down an extremely restrictive abortion law. Now, this 5-4 decision, in which Chief Justice John Roberts, joined with the court's 4 liberals, struck down a law passed by Louisiana. So now this was a 2014 law. And what it did is that it required any doctor offering abortion services to have admitting privileges at a hospital within 30 miles. So now, this, of course, made its way through the court, through all the lower courts, and then ended up at the Supreme Court, to which they say, well, sorry, but, we have precedent here, and we've already struck down a similar law in Texas, and so we cannot let the Louisiana law stand. And so that's interesting. Now, as for the substance of the law, of course, look, it required clinics to get admitting privileges, which, of course, is an onerous and unnecessary burden put on people who are seeking an abortion. In fact, 2 Louisiana doctors in a medical clinic sued to get the law overturned. They said it would leave only 1 doctor at a single clinic to provide services for nearly 10,000 women who seek abortions in the state each year. And these same challengers pointed to the Texas law that the Supreme Court struck down in 2016. That was, of course, the vote of then Justice Anthony Kennedy, who ruled that Texas had imposed an obstacle on women seeking access to abortion without providing any sort of medical benefit. Why? It's because to need admitting privileges, generally women who get abortions don't run into that kind of complication where they have to go to the hospital with admitting privileges. And so what they're doing is that they're basically just putting in a burden for people to make it so that women have a harder time accessing abortion rights. So Stephen Breyer, who wrote the Texas decision, also wrote Monday's ruling and said the law poses a substantial obstacle to women seeking an abortion, offers no health benefits, and therefore imposes an undue burden on the constitutional right to choose to have an abortion. Roberts said even though the court was wrong to strike down the Texas law, but said he voted with the majority because that was the precedent. So understand that had they not ruled that way in 2016, it's very, very possible that we would have had a much different ruling today and that Louisiana would also have been upheld. And so, thank goodness for Stephen Breyer at that point, right? So now, Louisiana law, they pointed out, imposes a burden on access to abortion just as severe as opposed by Texas, and therefore, Louisiana's law cannot stand under our precedents, writes Roberts. And it actually would have been more restrictive than the Texas one, actually, because about half of the state's abortion clinics were forced to close. It also said the law was unnecessary because only a small fraction of women experience medical problems after an abortion, and when they do, they normally seek a treatment at a hospital near where they live, not one near the clinic. So now the Trump White House weighed in on this and said, quote, "In an unfortunate ruling today, the Supreme Court devalued both the health of mothers and the lives of unborn children by gutting Louisiana's policy that all required abortion services be performed by individuals with admitting privileges at a nearby hospital. States have legitimate interest in regulating any medical procedure, including abortions, to protect patient safety." So that's bullshit. Okay. This is not about protecting patients. It's about stopping women from having abortions. They want to make it harder for these clinics to operate. And so what they're doing is that they say that they're against regulation, right? And over-regulation specifically. But they've been using over-regulation for a very long time to target abortion clinics. Oh, you got to get admitting privileges. They've even changed like the layout and the rules for the layouts of these hospitals or of these clinics, right? To where, oh, yeah, you have the wrong kind of door frame. You got to shut down before you fix it. So you got to fix it first, right? And then you can open back up until we find, of course, something else to hit you on. Just all these simple over-regulations to try to shut down access to abortion. They're trying to regulate it to death. And so, of course, it's absolute hypocrisy. Complications, like I said, are incredibly rare. But it's not about that. It's not even about being pro-life. It's about being pro-birth. And that's it. I mean, if you really want to stop people from getting abortions, you make contraception widely and freely available. And you do comprehensive sexual education. This is not complicated. It works. Studies have shown that it works. And as a result, we've actually seen less teen pregnancy, unwanted pregnancies. And therefore, we've seen less abortions. It works. It works. Why don't we do that? Again, if you're really concerned, then you should stop abortion at its source and prevent people from getting pregnant with unwanted children as much as you can. You can never really get rid of that, obviously. But there are ways that you can reduce those numbers and therefore reduce abortions. And if you're part of the pro-life movement, isn't that your number one issue? Well, then why aren't you doing it? Well, I think we all know the answer to that. All right. That's it. That's all I got time for, guys. Thank you for going around the nation meet today. Please like and share the stream. Please subscribe to the channel or become a channel member or a patron. There's lots of different ways that you can help the show, all in the description of this live stream. So that said, thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow. You have a good day. Stay safe and all that good stuff. Wear your mask.
Mike Pounds.
Please clap.
Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
Tolerate.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.